Where do you get your protein? You lose half of it when you cook it. Why? You're destroying half your protein, you stupid fool. You're so concerned about it. You're cooking it. You're destroying half your protein. That's just the beginning of the damage that cooking our food has. I understand how difficult this is for the average person to even want to entertain. And that's mainly because they don't know what they're missing. That's why I harp on the solid food vacation so much. It gives people a chance to see what they're missing in a very short period of time, about 10 times faster than if you just say, I'm going to embrace a raw food diet. But while you're still eating, it's going to be a tough thing to be 100% right off the bat, so it may take you 5 years to finally do what you need to do that you can do in maybe 3 months. Powerful, powerful, powerful thing we can do when we take a solid food vacation on juices. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Because we get to see the results of not eating dead food. And again, you got to understand, if we didn't make the first of these 5 mistakes, the cooking of our food, we wouldn't be eating the animals. Some idiots want to eat them. They'll eat them raw. God, that's a disgusting thought. Nowhere in my psyche do I want to jump on an animal and start eating it. That's sick and perverted to even think you'd want to eat an animal. The only good is knowledge, the only evil is ignorance. Bad men live to eat and drink, whereas good men eat and drink to live. Socrates. The time will come when men such as I will look upon the murder of animals as they now look upon the murder of men. Leonardo Da Vinci, 1452 to 1519. It's been about 400 years, nothing's changed, has it? We still don't think there's anything wrong with killing those animals. And even though we know we shouldn't kill men, we're still doing that too, aren't we? For as long as man continues to be the ruthless destroyer of lower living beings, he will never know health and peace. For as long as men massacre animals, they will kill each other. Indeed, he who sows the seeds of murder and pain cannot reap joy and love. Pythagoras. While we ourselves are the living graves of murdered beasts, how can we expect any ideal conditions on this earth? The person who believes, or the person who is ignorant enough to believe that his nourishment depends on meat, is in a horrible dilemma. George Bernard Shaw. I'd like to add to that last one. The person who has been eating the wrong foods, animal products, for decades, that has level 2 nutrients in it that we're supposed to be able to make it for healthy, and becomes dependent upon meat, is also in a horrible dilemma. Because we're not biologically adapted to eat animals. Within a 70-year period of time, the average American eats 11 cows, 1 calf, 3 lambs and sheep, 23 hogs, 45 turkeys, 1,097 chickens, and 861 pounds of fish. Now, that was Gary Knoll in his Vegetarian Handbook, copyrighted in 1987, so 30 years ago, in his 70-year lifespan, the average 70-year-old American was eating over 2,000 animals, 2,041 if we count every meal that you ate fish was a pound, and therefore you ate 861 fish. I believe that every man who has ever been earnest to preserve his higher or poetic faculties in the best condition has been particularly inclined to abstain from animal food. Henry David Thoreau. One should eat to live, not live to eat. My refusing to eat flesh occasioned an inconvenience, and I was frequently chided for my singularity, but with this lighter repast I made the greater progress, from greater clearness of head and quicker comprehension. Benjamin Franklin. And that's where Plato said that the gods created certain kinds of beings to replenish our bodies. They are the trees, the plants, and the seeds. Obviously, Plato knows that we were not designed to eat animal products. We follow that quote up by Plato saying that, and we have made of ourselves living cesspools and driven doctors to invent names for our diseases. So it's obvious if we're eating animals, we're going to have this cesspool inside of us. In fact, I'm sure that's what George Bernard Shaw meant when he said, while we ourselves are the living graveyards of murdered beasts, how can we expect any ideal conditions on this planet? While we ourselves are the living graves of murdered beasts. So this is what Plato was saying. As we have made of ourselves living cesspools, living graves of murdered beasts. So if that's what we're doing, this is what Victor Hugo meant when he said we have this serpent inside of us. So we know for sure Plato can be at least referring to the eating of animals as a mistake, because we know animals take about 3 days to go through our food tube, which is why the average person in America has maybe 12, 15 meals backed up in their intestines. And that's like a serpent that pollutes our body. But really, does that really say that we shouldn't cook our food? Well, let's take a look at my favorite of all quotes by Plato, and many of you all know what I'm going to say. Right? Whatever deceives men seems to produce a magical enchantment. It is the mark of an intelligent mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Aristotle. However, there are some ideas that are hard to entertain. As Margaret Mead would say, it's easier to change a man's religion than it is their diet. Never doubt that a small group of people can change the world, for in fact it is the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I do know, the only ones among you who will be happy are those who have sought and have found how to serve. Albert Schweitzer. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor. Henry David Thoreau. My friends, Thoreau's talking about the hero's journey. There's nothing more important in our lives right now than correcting the fall of mankind. It's the raw food hero's journey. Against every great and noble endeavor are 1,000 mediocre minds. Albert Einstein. There are thousands hacking at the branches of evil for one who is striking at the root. Henry David Thoreau. Pretty obvious to me that Einstein, or whoever was writing his material, simply paraphrased Thoreau. The biggest cause of trouble in the world today is that the stupid people are so sure about things, and the intelligent folks are so full of doubts. So to remind you of what I said the other day when I quoted Lao Tzu, high capacity, middling capacity, and low capacity. Put it into practice, have two minds about it, laugh out loud. So where does doubt fit into this? Nothing wrong with questioning things. In fact, the only way you're going to learn everything is to question everything. But how do you know whether or not you're really questioning everything? I can doubt everything except one thing. And that has to do with the very fact that I doubt. Descartes. Didn't he say, I think, therefore I am? I wonder if he said that afterwards, and if he'd rephrase that and go, I think, therefore I am, I think, therefore I am, I think. Seriously, folks. Goes back to what Moses said in the teachings from the Essenes to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Moses said, I have two main obstacles. There are the ignorant masses and the arrogant rulers. Reminds me of what Shelton said. The greatest obstacle to living reform is not just ignorance, which is what we got a lot of, but it's the people who control everything, the ones who rule the world, the elitist, that small group that control everything, so that we lack the ability to question things. The problem that most of us have, I'm afraid, is that most of us are doing things we think are okay, and they're not okay. And what's the problem with that? You look around and everyone's doing it. So you don't even think you got to question it, do you? And of course, there's so much conflicting information. A lot of problems, the average person has got to be honest and say, I don't know. But most of them don't do that, do they? No. As Bertrand Russell pointed out just a moment ago with the beginning of my video here, the stupid people are so sure about things. They don't think they don't know. Kind of reminds me of how the Socratic irony works and the converse of that. I've done a couple of videos on this, a separate video on Einstein's Circle of Known. They credit it to him, but I doubt if he came up with it, because I don't think Einstein was all that bright. But anyway, I explained this in my special teaching tool, that if we want to look at our belief system, we start with a box of knowledge that has all the knowledge in the world. And then everybody's got little bitty circles inside that box that represents what they know. Everybody's got different sized circles, and hopefully we've got some overlapping circles where we all know one thing. Of course we don't. That's the problem. And then there was something I thought was interesting. He says that what we know is inside the circle, what we don't know is outside the circle. But then they say that the line that forms the circle is the interface between what we know inside the circle and what we don't know outside of our circle. So this is the type of ignorance where we know we don't know. We can be honest and say, I don't know yet. It's just too much conflicting information. So there's two ways we don't know we don't know. We don't know about what's outside of our circle. But the other way we don't know has to do with another box, and that's the box of false knowledge. And then what we got is the first stage of knowledge. I'll put it over here. Box of knowledge up here, box of false knowledge here. I explained that in my special teaching tool, the Ultima Schematic. That's the first stage. That's the knowledge we acquire. And our belief system has circles in both sides of these boxes. So the problem we have is we got another form of ignorance that we don't know. It's those false beliefs. And this is what gets us in trouble. We cannot learn anything when we think we already know. Again, the stupid people are so sure about things that they don't think about it. So if we go back to the top box, the box of knowledge, where we got a circle inside that, then what we have, to try to explain the point I'm getting at here, is that the bigger our circle gets, the bigger that line that forms a circle gets, and therefore the more we know we don't know. So that's why people with real big circles up here in that plus a box of knowledge are a little more humble. Again, that's the Socratic irony. I know so much I don't know anything. Again, as that line that forms a circle of your knowledge gets bigger, there's more awareness of what you don't know you don't know. Conversely, and this is what I'm getting at here, the converse of that is if you got a little bitty circle up there, then you got a little bitty line that forms a circle, and you don't know anything. So that's what Bertrand Russell's trying to say. The stupid people are so sure about things because they got little bitty circles. Society is always taken by surprise by any new example of common sense. Ralph Waldo Emerson. I've always appreciated that quote because you can't help but think, oh, what? Cigarettes cause lung cancer? Science didn't prove that. It's mind-boggling how eager we are to hear good news about our bad habits, isn't it? One of the big obstacles we face right now, solving most of our problems, has to do with our addictions and denial with the things we love. And if it's ever brought to our attention, we're always taken by surprise. What? Connection between what we eat and what we got? What? Well, I thought we all knew we are what we eat. Interestingly, Emerson knew what we should eat. And I've told this story before. I was at a friend's house back in like 1997. Been raw for 7 years, and books are jumping at me. Went to a friend's house, and sure enough, the book jumped at me, and first page I opened to, and the first thing I read was, "And food that fire had polluted." Just like the book on Voltaire, a few doctors dared to undermine their income to spread a knowledge of preventive medicine. It's mind-boggling what happens when we can bump up these biophotons that we're destroying when we cook our food. Food that fire has polluted. Here's Emerson talking about this, and he even said that that Alcott was the guy who turned him on to this. He didn't say anything about who Alcott was now. Didn't give his full name or even say he was a doctor. But I recognize his name. He was one of the early founders of the natural hygiene movement. And Emerson agreed with pretty much everything he said, and he admitted that his wife didn't like the idea and the people in the kitchen didn't like it. And again, I've gone on and on about this before, and it was so funny because he said Alcott went to England to try to convince the Brits, and of course he found that that everything that they're against everything good too. In fact, I want to go ahead and play just a little bit of what I recorded this morning. Listen to this real quick. This is some of Alcott.
The spirit of England was hostile to human welfare, and her institutions were adverse to the largest liberty of the soul. In America, Alcott wrote, "Is that second Eden to be planted, in which the divine seed is to bruise the head of evil and restore man to his rightful communion with God?"
Here he's talking about another Eden. Bruise the head of evil. Cooked food is evil, folks. Oh, surprise, surprise. Stick your hand in fire, it makes it better. Yeah, I can lick the flesh right off my bones now. Folks, what's it going to take to get the average person to realize the obvious? There's only one way to convince anybody, folks. There is only one way. I already realize this. There's not a damn thing I can say to convince the average person that what I'm saying is true. But you know what? They can prove it. That's the whole purpose behind my three-step process. And the first step is the solid food vacation. Fasting cures disease, dries up bodily humors, puts demons to flight, gets rid of impure thoughts, makes the mind clear, the heart pure, and the body sanctified, and raises man to the throne of God. Athenaeus. This Greek physician knew the power of a solid food vacation. And isn't it sad when you see the ignorant want to find flaws in this without even considering the positives? Why are you even looking at any of the negatives when you got all these positives to consider? I fast for greater physical and mental efficiency. Plato. Isn't that interesting? Plato was known to take solid food vacations and claim that this vacation from solid food made his physical and mental efficiency greater. The more you feed a sick man, the more you harm him. Hippocrates. It is a crime to feed anything to the sick. No food should be given until all symptoms are gone. The life of the patient depends upon getting rid of the putrid food still remaining in the bowels before enough putrents is absorbed to cause death. Dr. John Tilden. A full belly is the mother of all evil. The best of all medicines are rest and fasting. Benjamin Franklin. So it's time to get excited. It's time to do something that, as of now, very few of us have done. But when you go where few have gone, you'll be able to see what few have seen. You'll be able to rise above the ideas of the time and understand what I say when I close every video. When you do this, you're in for a treat.